Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. Tom here, and today we're going to figure out if I can beat Pokemon Y with only a Duskull. Duskull is more of a bulky Pokemon stat-wise, favoring its defenses over really any of its other stats. Because of this, we might be able to make use of the evolite, an item that boosts both defense and special defense of an unevolved Pokemon. As for its level up moves, they aren't the best though. They're not terrible, but we don't get a non-attacking ghost type move until level 25. Before I get ahead of myself, let's go over the rules. I can only use Duskull in battle. I do need HM Pokemon, but I won't be able to use them in battle. No items in battle unless they are held items. And finally, no glitches or exploits. Let's get started. After being rudely awakened by a bird, I change out of my pajamas and head outside to see my friends. I met up with the rest of the gang and grabbed my Duskull. I named him Dennis because I thought Dennis the Duskull was a funny name. I chose to replace Fennekin so that my rival would have a Greninja at the end, which would be the hardest starter for us to face. I take a look at our Duskull, and I think she has a rash nature, so up special attack and minus special defense. Not the best, but not terrible. We start off with Nightshade, a move that does a fixed amount of damage based on our level. We have a battle against Shauna, and unfortunately, we lose. We just can't do enough damage with Nightshade right now. I head over to Route 2, where we have our mandatory catching tutorial, and I tried to skip over Route 2 because most of the Pokemon here are either normal type or part normal type, which Nightshade can't hit because Nightshade is a ghost type move. But as I tried to skip over Route 2, I ran into this mandatory trainer battle who had a Zigzagoon. I thought the battle was already over, but then I realized his Zigzagoon only had normal type moves. So we're stuck in this stalemate where I can't hit him and he can't hit me, and we both have to wait until one of us runs out of power points to struggle out. I started to struggle first, and ended up critting him to win the battle. Well, that went a lot faster than I expected. And with that, I finally entered Santaloon Forest. In this area, I'm paired up with Shauna, who will heal up my Pokemon whenever I talk to her. This, along with a bunch of Pokemon I can actually hit, makes this place perfect to grind. And I'm going to need it. Not for the gym leader though. See, before I'm allowed to enter the gym, I'm required to battle this random roller skater with a Zigzagoon. And seeing how my last battle with a Zigzagoon went, I think a few more levels wouldn't hurt. Anyways, I level up to level 10 and head to Santaloon City and challenge the roller skater. It was an absolute stall waiting for one of us to run out of power points. I made a huge mistake and ended with Disable, which causes her to start struggling first. At the end of the battle, we both ended up fainting from her struggle, but for some reason I still paid her. I think I could win that fight if I started off with Disable rather than ending with it. I tried the battle again, this time starting with Disable, and weirdly enough, we started struggling on the same turn. I ended up winning the fight, but only because I had more overall health. I guess that grinding really paid off. Gym time. Finally, something Nightshade can actually hit. Viola Surskit wasn't a problem, but her Vivillon took me out with Infestation. I'm going to need to grind. I came back at level 14 and still had trouble, but then I got this run. She started off with Water Sport as I started off with Nightshade. She then goes for Bubble as I go for Disable, disabling it. I was able to finish off Surskit with a couple more Nightshades and was pretty much able to keep all of my health. Then Vivillon came out. I used Disable thinking she would start off with Infestation, but goes for Harden instead. I just had to rush her down with Nightshades hoping it'd finish her off. She kept using Infestation as I kept using Nightshade, and I was just able to tank the damage to finish her off, getting me the bug badge. I gotta give the AI credit there. They're a lot smarter than I thought they were. In multiple attempts, they were really outplaying my Disables by either using a stat move or Water Sport. But after that, I was able to head over to Lumia City and meet up with Professor Sigmore. He challenged me to a battle and he starts off with a level 10 Bulbasaur and goes for Leech Seed. I rushed his Bulbasaur down with Nightshade, taking him out. He sends out his Charmander and continuously uses Smokescreen on me, so I kept missing my attacks. Eventually, I go down to a Leech Seed, but I guess we're able to lose this battle, so we're able to continue. He offers me a Kanto starter, and that's quite a selection there, Sycamore. I took the Bulbasaur and deposited him into the PC. I moved on to Route 5, where I bumped into Tierno. He challenges me to a battle, but he wasn't an issue at all. I made my way through Route 5 battling trainers and went through a couple fillery stuff. Hey look, a Bulbasaur. We finally made it to Solange City, and I headed over to the second gym. I tried to gym out at level 30 and no dice. I decided to grind up to about level 39, And after that, I got this run. Grant sends out his Amora and Thunder Waves me. I went with Nightshade, taking it close to half health. They use Takedown, which hits me, even though it's a normal type move, but they receive damage from recoil, and I'm also wearing the Rocky helmet at this point. I use Nightshade to finish him off. Tyrant's up next, and this was a real problem Pokemon for this gym. Having both a high attack and a strong jaws boosted bite really chewed through my health, pun not intended. He goes for bite, taking me down to about quarter health as I used Nightshade and then finished him off with Shadow Sneak, earning me the Cliff Badge. I made my way to Shallower City and have a battle with Serena in the Tower of Mastery. I had some difficulty with this fight. Her Absol was the main problem. They just did so much damage. So she starts off with her Meowsticks and goes for Disarming Force as I go for Piggyback, taking her out. She sends out her Absol and goes for Bite as I go for Payday, just barely missing the kill and finishing off with a Shadow Sneak. Frogadier is up next, and I use Nightshade to take them down to yellow health as they go for Water Pulse, taking me down to 20 health. I risked it on a Shadow Sneak and finished her off, winning the fight. If that Shadow Sneak didn't do enough damage, I wouldn't have won that fight. Karina's up next, and this fight was really easy. She kept using normal and fighting moves, which didn't work against Duskull because she's a ghost type. To be fair though, Grant did the same thing with Takedown and it worked fine for him, but I ended up just spamming her down with Nightshade until all of her Pokemon went down. After that, I headed over to the Tower of Mastery to face Karina again. So you're required to use a Lucario in this fight, so I just used Melsound over and over again until she took me out. I then declined the Lucario that was offered to me, leaving it rejected and probably still waiting up there for me to this day, but I realized I could get the evolite and that was way more important than this challenge. I made my way over to the next city and over to the next gym. In front of the gym, I was challenged by Serena again. This fight goes pretty much the same as the last one, and in fact it's the same fight over again. This fight is supposed to show off Mega Evolution, but since I'm not using a Mega Pokemon, it's just a repeat battle. Alright, Ramos time. He starts off with a jump bluff and goes for acrobatics as I go for a payback, nearly knocking him out. Then went for a Shadow Sneak for the knockout. Weepinbell comes out next. I went for a payback, thinking he would outspeed me, but I ended up outspeeding him. I went for a Shadow Sneak just to see how much damage it would do, and it ended up taking him out. Gogo's up next and uses Grass Knot, doing very little damage. I use payback to take off half of his health. I go for Shadow Sneak and he hangs on with red health. I knew he would heal up, so I went for the Will-O-Wisps to burn him, but I missed. So I just kept using payback to finish the battle. I really was overthinking that Will-O-Wisp play, but with that final payback, we win our Grass Gym Badge. After that, we had to clear out some Team Flare grunts in the power plant, but they weren't hard. Next up is Clamont in Lumio City. He took a couple tries. His Heal-O-Wisp would either knock me out or would whittle me down enough for his Emolga to finish me off. I then got this run. He sends out his Emolga going for Volt Switch. I go for Nightshade, taking his Magnemite out before he can even attack. After that, he sends out his Heal-O-Wisp and goes for Thunderbolt. I went for payback and brought him down to red health. He heals up as I go for a payback, landing a crit, which knocks him out. Emolga's back out, and I use Nightshade, then Shadow Sneak to finish him off, winning the battle, and getting me the Gym Badge. After that, I headed over to Route 14 to have a battle with Serena. This fight was pretty easy, not too much has changed with her team. She has a Greninja now with a priority move, but I already got a strategy down for each of her Pokemon. I made my way to Lavery City and headed over to the Fairy Gym. Valerie was no problem. I just swept through her team with Nightshade and Shadow Sneak. I think I'm over-leveled at this point, or at least being over-leveled and having evolite is making things too easy. Up next is another rival battle, this time in Anistar City and right in front of the 7th gym. I swapped out the evolite with the Rocky helmet because I felt like the evolite was just making things way too easy. She starts off with a Meowstic and goes for Psychic, taking about a quarter of my health away. I went for payback, taking her out. Her Greninja comes out and uses Dark Pulse, immediately taking me to 5 health. Well, that escalated quickly. She uses another Dark Pulse and takes me out. After multiple attempts, I finally get to her Absol, but he has Night Slash, which also takes me out. We can't win this fight. I gotta grind up some more. I was trying to keep my levels under control, but I can't win this fight. I come back at level 75, and even though I can consistently beat her Greninja now, Absol is still a wall. I come back at level 80 and put the evolite back on. Her Meowstic is the same story. She uses Psychic and I take her out with payback. Greninja is up next and goes for Water Shuriken rather than Dark Pulse for some reason. I use Nightshade, taking over half of her health away. She went for another water shuriken, and I finished him off with Nightshade. Absol comes out, and I start with a Nightshade. She goes for a Night Slash, critting me and taking me down to about quarter health. I use Nightshade, finishing him off. Flareon is her last Pokemon. I use Nightshade, taking over half of her health away. She goes for Lava Plume, and I live on 7 health. I use Shadow Sneak, taking him out, winning the fight. That was an intense fight. I don't know why her Greninja didn't use Dark Pulse though. That would have taken a good chunk of health off, and her Absol could have definitely finished me off though, but I'm not complaining. Alright, on to the next gym. I took off the evolite and replaced it with the Rocky Helmet, and even without the evolite, her Pokemon were really easy. She only had 3 Pokemon and they were focused on setting up. I just kept doing damage and took them out. And with that, we got the Psychic Gym badge. Up next, we have to deal with Team Flare. I got into their base and faced off against the first Lysander fight, and we lost a lot. The big issue is his Murkrow. We just can't do enough damage to knock him out quickly, and he does a lot of damage with foul play. I gotta grind. I grinded up to level 85, and yeah, still no dice. I ended up grinding pretty aggressively, up to level 95. The reason being is that I have to face Lysander 3 times during this section of the game, and he gets harder with each fight. He sends out his Mianfu, and I finish him off quickly with Nightshade and Shadow Sneak. Next up is Murkrow. I use Shadow Sneak, taking more than half of his health away. He goes for Foul Play and does about a quarter of my health. I used another Shadow Sneak to finish him off. Pyro comes out and uses Dark Pulse, taking me down to half health. I use Return, finishing him off. Gyarados is the final Pokemon. He uses Aqua Tail, taking me to about quarter health. I used Nightshade twice, taking him out. Even after heavy grinding, that fight was still a little too close. I made my way through Team Flare's grunts and fought Lysander again. This fight was way too similar to the first one, so let's move on. I made my way through Team Flare's other base. I knocked out Yveltal, and then I realized I had to actually catch Yveltal, so I caught Yveltal, and then I fought against Lysander and his flying drones. In this fight, you're forced to use Yveltal for the first time, but if you lose, you can actually go back and deposit him. So that's what I ended up doing. Round 2 was pretty easy actually. Most of his Pokemon went down to 1 or 2 hits. His Mian Xiao went down to Return, his Pyroar went down to Payback and Return, Honchkrow went down to Return, and Mega Gyarados went down to 2 Nightshades. And with that, there goes the evil team. I made my way to Quarry Town, and there I had to battle with Professor Sigmore. He wasn't as hard as last time. Actually, he was super easy. I then faced off against Shauna, Tierno, and Trevor. All of them were very easy. 8th gym time, and it wasn't that difficult of a battle. His strategy is to stall you out with bulky Pokemon, but Nightshade really counters that with it being fixed damage. But it was a close-ish battle. He ended up confusing me, and if I had hit myself with confusion, I would have lost that fight. But with that, we get the 8th gym badge and now can move on to Victory Road. So during my Victory Road trip, I ran into Serena for our final battle. This was a brutal battle. She now has a couple more levels on her Pokemon and has an extra Pokemon. She sends out her Meowstic and goes down to a Payback. Nothing changes there. Greninja comes out and uses Dark Pulse, taking me down to about 3rd health. I take him out with a Return and Shadow Sneak. Absol comes out and uses Night Slash. It doesn't crit and I live on 10 health. She goes down in 1 Return. Up next is Flareon. I used Return and she hangs on with a sliver of health. She uses Lava Plume and that knocked me out. I definitely can do this with the right luck. After many attempts, I get this run. She starts off with Meowstic, and I use Payback for a one-shot. Nothing's changed there. Greninja's up next and uses Dark Pulse, taking away about 1/3 of my health. I use Return, taking away 2/3 of her health. She uses Dark Pulse again, and I'm only left with maybe a quarter health. I finish her off with Return. Absol's up next, and she uses Swords Dance. Swords Dance. She doesn't use Night Slash on me. Swords Dance. The AI gave me an out, and I am taking it. I use Return to one-shot her. She sends out Flareon, and I go for a Return, just barely missing the kill. She goes for a bite, and I lived on 24 health. I go for Shadow Sneak for the finish. Finally is her Altaria. She outsped me and went for Dragon Pulse, and I lived on 8 health. I used Nightshade to take her a little under half health and finished her off with Shadow Sneak. I sprung up from my chair and did a victory lap around my apartment. I was so happy to have won that fight. That was brutal and took many attempts. But anyways, I made my way to the Elite Four and even gave a few attempts at the Elite Four. But unfortunately, there's just no way to beat them like this. So I ended up teaching Duskull Double Team. Double Team raises a Pokemon's accuracy. thus giving each of the opponent's moves a chance to miss. It's kind of a cheesy strat, especially with evolite, but I don't think I can win without it. So I go in to face Wickstrom, the Steel Elite 4 member. Wickstrom starts off with a Klefki, which isn't too much of a threat, but he uses Torment. Torment prevents me from using the same move in a row, which makes setting up double teams really difficult. I get this run where he couldn't land Torment on me. I finish off Klefki with a Nightshade and Shadow Sneak. He then sends out Scizor and uses Night Slash, but misses. He keeps trying to use Night Slash, but keeps missing and goes down to 2 Nightshades. Next up is Aegislash. He goes for a Shadow Claw, putting me into yellow. I go for Nightshade, taking off a little over half of his health. I go for Shadow Sneak, finishing him off. Up next is Probopass. He misses his Power Gem as I use 2 Nightshades to finish him off, winning the fight. Well, that's the first Elite 4 member down. Next up is the Dragon Leader, Drasna. Her fight wasn't too difficult in retrospect. It's mainly luck and using the right moves at the right time. Her Dragalge has Poison Point and Druddigon has Rough Skin, both of which can end a fight for me if I use a physical move against them. So I gotta be careful. She sends out her Dragalge and kept using Dragon Pulse on me. It doesn't do too much damage, but I want to save my health for her other Pokemon. I use 2 double teams, then take it out with 2 Nightshades. Her Altair is up next, and she tries to use Sing but just can't land one on me before going down to Nightshade. No Wyvern comes out, but goes down to a combination of Return and Nightshade. Druddigon's up next and gets off a Dragon Tail, but ends up going down with 2 Nightshades. And with that, that's the second Elite 4 member down. Up next is Sabold, the Water Elite 4 member. The main issue I had with this fight is that his Clawritzer has Dark Pulse, which just chews through my health. So I need to get a run where he misses Dark Pulse. And eventually I got a run where I was able to set up 2 double teams, but I took a lot of damage in the process. I was able to take him out with 2 returns. Gyarados comes out next, and I use Nightshade as he uses Dragon Dance. I go for Shadow Sneak to chip him down, and he misses his Waterfall. I go for Nightshade, finishing him off. Next up is Barbaracle, and he goes down in 2 Nightshades. Starmie comes out next, and I wasn't really sure what to do here. This was the farthest I had gone, so I had no idea what Starmie had. I used Shadow Sneak and ended up taking away half of his health, so I just used another Shadow Sneak to finish him off. And with that, that's 3 of the 4 Elite members done. Last but not certainly least is Malv, the Fire Elite 4 member. She starts off with Pyroar and uses Flamethrower, which takes about a quarter of my health away. I used 2 double teams, then started spamming Return, as she used Flamethrowers and Noble Roars. I'm trying to take Pyroar down before she either burns me or reduces my attack too much. She eventually goes down to a crit Return. The rest of her Pokemon were pretty easy actually. They mainly went down to a Nightshade or Shadow Sneak. And with that, we have 4 out of 4 of the Elite members down. Up next is Champion Diantha. She sends out Hawlucha and goes for Poison Jab as I go for double teams. I have to be careful because if I get poisoned, then the attempt is essentially over. Damage over time just kills us, especially when the opponent has 6 Pokemon. I use Nightshade and Shadow Sneak to take out Hawlucha. Next up is Gourgeist. I use double team because after many attempts, I know she's going to use Phantom Force. I was kind of on autopilot at this point and didn't even realize she missed her Phantom Force. I didn't even know Phantom Force could miss until I looked back at the footage. I used Nightshade and Shadow Sneak to finish her off. Tyrantrum's up next, and this Pokemon can be a real issue. It's kind of like the second gym. A high attack and a strong jaws boosted crunch can really take me out with ease. But he misses both of his crunches and goes down to a Nightshade. Auroras is up next and just can't hit a Blizzard. She ends up using all of her healing items on him, but eventually goes down to Shadow Sneak. Goodra comes out and immediately goes down to Nightshade. Gardevoir comes out and immediately Mega Evolves and lands a Shadow Ball. I use Nightshade to take her down to half health, then use Shadow Sneak to finish her off, ending the battle. And with that, we are now the champion of the Kalos region. There is an AZ battle, but he was no problem. But that was an interesting run. Kind of felt like a stall in the beginning because we couldn't hit anything until the first gym. Then it got really easy in the middle of the run, around the 3rd gym I'd say. Then brutally hard at the end, especially with that last rival battle. But I felt like it made it really fun and really fulfilling to win this run. I was a little worried actually that this run was going to be too easy, but I was completely off. Well, thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you liked the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, take care.